r/AskReddit by Redmond Dts. What's a disturbing crime from your town that doesn't get talked about? My family lived next door to a dude who killed his wife, chopped her head off, left her head in the crawl space of his home, and threw her body off a bridge near the neighborhood of another family member of mine. The body didn't make it into the water below, so it was quickly spotted and the guy was thrown in jail. A man on my street beat his wife to death and poured boiling oil over her body in an effort to cover it up. His two children saw this happen and escaped the house, alerting neighbors. The man got 15 years and didn't even serve that. His children were forced to live with his parents, and he maintained contact, while the wife's family never saw the kids again. He was also released temporarily on compassionate grounds on a day dedicated to domestic violence awareness in her name. An absolute travesty of a crime that spat in the name of victims everywhere. The poor woman's name was Caroline Crossan. We had a dentist here who used to put his semen in syringes and squirt it into patients' mouths, including children, telling them it was some kind of medicine. At his trial, part of his defense was that he was using an anti-balding medication and was concerned about his sperm count, so kept vials of semen around the office to test them. He was pretty mum about how and why he wound up putting it into patients' mouths though. Dude only spent a few months in jail. I believe his house burned down and he vanished. Then someone located him practicing dentistry without a license in Central America. Good times. Edit. I could swear his house burned down, but maybe I dreamed that part. Utah has a shocking amount of serial killers that we just don't really recognize. Ted Bundy is probably the most famous. But that shit gets glossed over real quick around here. Unrelated. What I love about this article is that it lists a bunch of serial killers, and then in the exact same format, just lists the site sponsors Siegfried and Jensen, as though they were also serial killers. There's that lady from Pleasant Grove, who murdered 7 of her infant children over 7 years, and kept them in boxes in her garage. My stepdad was a cop on that case, who uncovered several of the first deceased infants. I live in Oakland County, Michigan. When I was a kid in the 70s, 4 kids were abducted, sexually assaulted, and then strangled, and left dead near where I grew up. No arrests. No closure. We talked about it non-stop growing up, but time has moved on and the killer is most likely dead or an old man. So whoever it was got away with it. Michigan has some weird ones. Remember that guy who lured a guy from Grindr to his house and killed him and ate his dung and testicles? Or that time those guys plotted to kidnap and rape and kill the governor? We had a mentally handicapped high school kid kill both his parents because he got upset. It was pretty awful. He didn't understand that what he did meant they couldn't come back. A man kidnapped and abused a child who was terrified and in captivity long enough to keep quiet for years, despite having access to internet and phone. At one point, he even left a message for his parents on a message board, asking if they'd keep looking for him. His parents thought this was a troll, as he used his own name. Years later, the man kidnapped another child. This child happened to have been walking with another boy around his age before he was taken. The other boy happened to know a lot about or have a special interest in trucks and was able to relay to the police that he saw color, make, model, rust pattern. The police caught the man days later with that information, and both boys were safely released. If you grew up in the community when he was growing up, you knew him. You worked with his mom. He managed you at the local pizza chain back in the day. He went to your high school. He asked your friend out long ago. My partner and I were walking our dogs last night and saw a little girl playing outside her home, unaccompanied by her parents. She was sweet, and we were sweet back. But it made me think about Michael, Sean and Ben. How we talked about them growing up, and now not so much. Almost 500,000 children are reported missing each year in the United States. More than 15 years ago, my friend Jennifer Cook of Grandview, Ohio, was stabbed to death in her home. No one has ever been arrested. Her ex-husband, let's call him Stabby Max Stabberson to protect his identity, was a person of interest. A girl and her beau were murdered. The chief of police was suspected but never charged. 40 years later they reopened her case to try and get more answers, dug her up, and found there was someone else's head in her casket, and no one knows what happened to her head. Or whose head was in the casket. A lawyer shot and killed his wife and child, then went and held the police department hostage. Absolutely no one talks about this one, so I don't know how it ended. A man was beaten to death with his own prosthetic leg and robbed. A firefighter burnt down his pregnant ex-girlfriend's house with her in it because he didn't want to be a father. A girl was found dead in her car in a pond on the golf course. No clue what happened there. A couple weeks ago a guy shot his stepson and killed him. The mom posted a weird video of the events leading up to the shooting. Bad vibes for sure. There is a cult that's centered around a woman and her being the bride of Christ and living forever. Something to do with frogs. The woman died, but the cult continued on, and they apparently abused children, starving them and smearing feces on them. I live in a town of 2200. I lived in a very white suburban rural town in the 1980s. A black family bought a large house directly across the street from the local country club. It was burned down within a month. Even though everyone knew who did it, or at least who was responsible, there was never an arrest made. Chief of police got caught having an affair with his 18-year-old son's 17-year-old girlfriend. He's still a cop, but no longer the chief, and I think she's a stripper now. Nobody talks about it, because most people don't know. The only reason I do, is because she and I were both seniors in the same class. 3 teenagers were slashed to death in the concrete riverbed channel behind a miniature golf arcade parking lot. Nobody was ever arrested. If you've ever seen the original Karate Kid movie, that's where they filmed the date scene right around the same time it happened. Funeral home was selling body parts and gold from teeth and jewelry without permission, using funds for luxury items and vacations, and giving loved ones cement mix in place of cremains. They literally operated a business called Body Brokers from the same address as the funeral home. The Covenor Massacre. A disgruntled ex-husband showed up to his ex-in-law's family home on Christmas Eve, dressed as Santa. Killed 9 people by shooting, or by arson from the fire he started. He then fled the scene and later shot and killed himself. I heard the divorce had been finalized just a week before the killings. He was going to run, but his Santa outfit caught on fire and melted to his skin, and he killed himself in front of his brother's house. Oh man. Few girls went missing in my middle of nowhere town. A body or two was found in the river after a while of searching. They searched one potential guy's house, even the pile of concrete rubble behind it. One day, this same guy's drunk driving and runs into a school bus. Police search his car and find a pretty little pink cell phone, apparently belonging to one of the missing girls. They search his house again, and this time in the pile of rubble find the last missing girl's body. Population of literally 135 where I grew up. I was a cop. Sexual assault is rampant and the bad thing is, most of the victims never get justice. I specialized in sexual assault investigations, and it's terrible. The low conviction rate is usually because there's just not enough evidence. I worked relentlessly trying to solve those, and it was usually a dead end. Sexual assault is rampant in the swinger lifestyle scene in New York. Which is a shame, because most people in the scene overall are very nice and respectful. We went to a hacienda villa party in Brooklyn, which is a very popular poly-swinger organization. We witnessed at least 2 rapes. When we tried to report it, we were shunned and thrown out of the club permanently. There is even a New York Times article about this place describing this. I wish we knew earlier. There's a stretch of road just outside of town that's got some really dark history that most people living there have no clue about. It's along a small river. In a little forested area, completely hidden from the road, is the oldest cemetery in the county. Across the road is cornfields now, but you can still see parts of a building foundation. The foundation is what remains from a church that burned down with the congregation inside, about 30 people, if I recall correctly, in the 1920s. A little further down the road, about a quarter mile, was a house. In the 1960s, the family that lived there was found murdered in their beds, husband, wife, and 3 kids, between 5 and 13. No suspects were ever identified. About another quarter from there, the road curves and crosses the river. That bridge was used for lynchings until at least the 1950s. There's no clear verifiable number of lynchings that happened there that I've ever found, but it was at least a couple dozen. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more? Have a nice evening.